Hey everyone, good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to some of you. Welcome to this 30th edition of ClarITea Chat. This session is today an AMA session, Ask Me Anything session, uh, because my guest dropped out. My guests are incredibly busy, CIOs and executives, and they keep having challenges. I think around this time of the year is like the ending of the year coming nearer. The budgeting season is going on, so I do expect these kind of challenges. Now this is the 30th episode of the ClarITea Chat. Thanks to your encouragement and engagement from across the world. Well, if someone opts out, it becomes an AMA session, and it gives me an opportunity to come closer to you. And as always, with absolute frankness. Now, I think I'm getting more and more comfortable with, getting some of you over into the studio. I was very apprehensive initially, but let me offer you to come live with me on the chat. If you have a case study to share, or if there's something that you were able to do differently after attending any of the ClarITea Chat sessions. So if you have a perspective on business value of technology, or case study, or some value add from ClarITea Chat, please come and share with our other audience. And of course, please come with your cup of tea. So here's the process. Whatever you want to talk about, please put it in the comments on LinkedIn, and those comments I can see here, and I'll just ask my team to share with you on a private chat. The process, the streaming link on which you have to join. Okay. So please keep your questions coming. Today's session is for answering your questions. But we also have a backlog of important unanswered questions from the previous ClarITea chats. Some of them were tandem questions. So we will try to address them as well, of course, with some case studies. So this time, we'll try to make it a little bit faster in terms of a rapid fire kind of format to cover maximum questions. And of course, we will balance the live audience questions with the backlog. And of course, needless to say that the live questions get higher priority. Now, you will be glad to know, and we have talked about it earlier, that ClarITea Chat has become for me place agnostic, and I think over a period of time we've gotten more and more comfortable doing it from different places and different networks and all that. I've been shifting from Bangalore to Mumbai to Pune in the last 2 years, and this has seen many places with me. So I can say that from today onwards, I'll be at Pune. I just came back from Mumbai today morning. Just shifting everything that was residual in my household there. I'm in Pune for good now. Of course, next to greenery in a village setting, some of which I will keep sharing with you in my videos from the green side. yeah, so as usual, in the chat, you will get honest answers, you will get some approaches, some thought processes, or a case study from my, rich experiences, but no gyan. So as always. So before I go ahead, I request our audience to share their name and where you're joining from in the comment box of LinkedIn or YouTube. And meanwhile, let us see who all have joined us. I already have quite a few people here. I've got Thomas Shelby joining us on YouTube. Hey, thanks, Sumit, for giving a nudge to everyone. Um, Thomas is a student aged 17. What life advice will you give to young people to be successful in life? Well, Thomas, lots of it. So we'll hold back that for now. I'll come back to your question. Okay. So we have Snehanshu Jena. Good afternoon, Snehanshu. Good afternoon, Dinesh. Good afternoon, Anil. Anil Bahl is here. We have Pawan Roy, again from Calcutta, I believe. Pawan, unless you're traveling. Anil is wants to have a chat on automation and Industry 4.0. And Anil, there's a comment. Gosh, you're moving faster than Putin. Oh my God, that's not an example I would like to be compared with today. Somebody trying to wage a war in these times where we don't know much what war is. But I would love you to explain, what you mean by moving faster than Putin. Okay. And then we have Rachit Chabra from New Delhi. So guys, keep it coming. Please share with us where you're joining from. So let me start with Thomas's question here. Okay. So let me bring up that question. So Thomas is a student age 17. What life advice will you give to young people to be successful in life? Thomas, I'll call you Tom, okay? So Tom, I think the first thing is you have to define what success means to you. And the definitions of success keep changing over a period of time. So let me just share from my experience how it was. Initially, I came from a small town. My parents were not very well off, and I wanted to sort of pay back to them. I wanted to be successful. That means, and that time the meaning of success was earning money. But then, as I sort of started working, started doing well, the definition of success started shifting towards adding value. Initially it is like money first, but then I think after a while you realize that if you add value, the money will follow. So the definition of success for us is the cart, which is the money. But you have to feed the horse for it, which is your own capabilities. Okay. So first advice I will give you is build capabilities. Keep learning. Capabilities come out of learning. So you have to keep learning and build capability, and success follows. Okay, whether it's money, or whether it's a good job, or whether it's working for one of those big MNCs. Keep building capability. The second one is, I think you are coming at a time when the world was hit by pandemic, and you have seen suffering. You are seeing a war. I think in our entire generation, we hardly saw the scale of war that is coming here, and I think we have seen the world change quite a bit with technology, right? So I think the one thing that we definitely need, anyone who's surviving all of this, we need to have a lot of gratitude. Okay, that means we have to we have to understand that we are privileged to be alive. We are privileged to have our near and dear ones alive, and you know at whatever level of success we are um, in our own measure of success. uh, look towards all of those who have not made it there, and I think that is one of the easiest way to feel grateful. Having an able body, or having a steady job, or even having 3 meals a day. Some of these things, uh, a majority of people out there are not having those privileges. So I would say build capability and have gratitude. Of course, there are many more things, but this is again, as I say, no gyan. I talk from my experiences. I think these are the two things that I have always used. So capability has made me do new things, and has helped me push the boundaries of success, while um, having gratitude has kept my feet on the ground. It has always kept me peaceful, and I have made sure that I'm not running after mirages, okay, in the pursuit of success. So it's the thread that keeps you connected to the ground as your kite flies high, if you understand what I mean. Okay. So Thomas, I hope that helps. If that does, maybe send me some comments or a thumbs up. I would love to uh, see some validations here. Okay. So now let me take some of the backlog questions. We took one live question. So this is from Miraj. I think this was in our discussion with Sudhir Kanvinde, when there was one question which was, what can private sector learn from government? Which was answered very nicely by Sudhir. But then I think Miraj asked this question, that what can government adopt, learn from the private sector, which was not, which we couldn't answer given the time. So Miraj, let me take that question. Um, you see, in private sector, um, the technology is used for making us more efficient, more productive, meeting our, let's say, making us greener in terms of reducing the use of paper, okay, reducing the use of electricity with all these upcoming IoT technologies and all that, okay. So, so I think there are a few things that government can pick up. One is that, focus on making the entire governance machinery more and more efficient, which I actually see happening. If you see some of the examples like the passport seva kendra, that's an amazing example of uh, what kind of services you can transform, which are going to the citizens. Um, Now, when you see all the public servants out there, whether it is the police or the traffic people, I see gradually, people, getting those tablets to cut your fines. I recently, went to RTO, and I found that, like, any document related to your vehicle out there, you can actually go to the website and take a printout. So the citizen experience is, what they should be focusing on. There are tons of areas where they have done it, and there are tons of areas where it is still lacking. But I would say that we are in the right direction. And India as a country, I've been to many countries. I think India as a country is far ahead in terms of digitizing the citizen experience and improving it. So I would say citizen experience, and the second thing is the speed of processes. Bring in SLAs. Private sector, we all work on SLAs. So bringing in SLAs, in terms of what would be the turnaround times once you put in an application and all of that, and then putting a digital infrastructure on top of it. And I think the biggest thing that I'm realizing as I think on the feet in answering this question is accountability. The accountability in public spaces has always been poorer than in private sector, and that's something where technology can play a big role. Okay, let me do a bit of tango between the live questions um, and the backlog. Let me look for another live question here. Um, so, okay, I can see other people coming here. Jayjit from Pune, and Dinesh. Yeah, Dinesh Singh. Dinesh is talking about the electronic toll collection. Electronic toll collection is also a great success story where the will of the government in terms of saying that everybody better get it, and then putting the entire ecosystem together, all banks, the FASTag being a central repository, and any bank can issue a FASTag, and still being pretty, I would say, data driven in that sense. That has been a great story. I can tell you, I just came today morning from Mumbai to Pune, and all the tolls were electronic. But I can say that that is where we also need to benchmark, because if you go to other countries, the experiences, there are no queues actually. Here we still have queues. We still have a bit of a lag between your FASTag being read and the sort of the gate opening. Um, I mean, I was in Bangkok, and you could actually the lane is without any barricades, and you can simply zip through at 60 kilometers per hour, and you can pay toll, right? So there are absolutely no queues in other countries, and I think that's something that we need to kind of learn from still, right? Okay, so then let me pick some other questions from my backlog. Guys, please keep the questions coming here. Hi, Sandeep from Germany, I believe. Yeah, this was Dinesh Singh talking about the towel collection. Okay, so how are we integrating customer emotions with digitization? Now, this is from Prasad Bhujbul. Vinay, if you can bring it here. Um, I think we have seen, enough, I would say, use of technology without really focusing on the customer experience, right? I mean, the best example I always give is a call center, whether it's a bank, telecom, or any other company. Um, I think you are put through a labyrinth of IVRs and not much intelligence in terms of um, you know, hey, what is the latest transaction, on which this guy may have a query, and then directing him directly there. So, and like that, you will find that, people have done technology, but without really integrating the customer experience to that. So Prasad, I would like to, change that emotion to experience. Okay, that requires a lot more thoughtfulness. In fact, I had written an article about a hospital, where the user interface was pretty great on the portal. There was a chat agent, there was this OPD time booking right up front, which was pretty thoughtful gesture, because most of the people visit a hospital website uh, uh, for an OPD appointment. But that OPD appointment doesn't really, the process doesn't get completed. The chat, the process doesn't get completed. So the biggest way to integrate customer experience with digitization is to really test it out day after day, every day, to make sure that things are working, to make sure that the experience that you are trying to provide to the customers is happening, right? The next thing is also to have some KPIs around it, because they say that what you measure, you can manage. What you don't measure, you cannot manage. So in this case, for example, was the hospital really tracking as to what is my total number of appointments that I'm getting, and what's the appointments coming from the digital channel, what's the appointments coming from the chat channel. And if we find that there are no appointments coming from those channels, then you need to question as to what is wrong, right? And you need to put some sort of a internal testing process in place that, hey, is everything all right? Now today there are enough, I would say, testing and automation tools or the monitoring tools which can at a very microservices level, they can tell you whether something is broken or not. And the easiest example I can think of is like the travel websites. So as you are going through the process of, let's say, booking a air ticket or a hotel accommodation, they if the process gets broken somewhere, I think an alert gets generated, and you immediately get a call from their call center. Hey, sir, we see that your payment was not completed. Do you have a problem, right? And then they will find an alternate means for you. So that provides a great experience to the customer. Now, bringing you back to how I solved it when we were putting up a call center for the automobile company that you very well know where I worked in. We didn't want to do IVR. In fact, we said everyone gets put off by IVR, so why not try something else? Now, at an emotional level, everyone connected with that agenda. Everyone said that, yeah, we don't want to do IVR. But then when we looked at the call volumes and what kind of people, number of people that we will have to put to give a physical interface, somebody calling up to, hey, welcome to Tata Motors. What kind of numbers it would take? We figured out that the number was not even at the volumes that we were talking about, was about 40 to 50 people, because this process tends to be very, very fast. Somebody telling you, somebody greeting you, and then directing you to the most relevant person, instead of you going through a series of options. Dial this if it is this, dial this if it is this, and then there's a next level, then there's a next level, and then you go into the respective work group. And then we ask the question that at 40, 50 people, at whatever X thousand rupees per person, is that a monthly expense that's worth providing that kind of customer experience? And the moment we put those numbers to it, we figure out that what I mean, given all kinds of costs we have everywhere, I think that's not really a too big an investment, because it matters to customer experience. So for quite a long time, our call center ran with automated voice which said, welcome to Tata Motors, and then immediately the phone going to somebody who will greet you as a human being. I'm not sure what it is now. I haven't called them up for a long time, but I hope it continues like that. Okay. So now we have another question here from Krishnakumar S, which says, given the rapid adoption of IT digital, there is obviously a lot of information and customer data getting generated and stored. How matured is India from a customer privacy point of view? See, if you're asking for an opinion, how mature are we from a customer privacy point of view? I would say, with respect to what? Okay, I think typically the fingers will point towards Europe. Europe has its own GDPR law, which is fairly strict, and binds companies to quite a bit of onerous terms of how to handle customer data. So I do see that even companies which are not European, the fact that they have to do business in Europe, right? adopt GDPR standards, and these become available. These become available to other regions. So Krishnakumar, yeah, I see your comment where you're saying I meant along the lines of GDPR. Yes, I understand that. I'm coming to that question, which is um, I'm just looking at more like a trend instead of giving you a answer good, bad, or like high, medium, low in terms of maturity. Just trying to give a bit of a nuanced answer here. Um, See, today is an era of global businesses, so you can actually run a business from India and you can be serving customers globally. You know, you can be a company anywhere and serving consumers everywhere. So, therefore, in the era of global businesses, a regulation coming up anywhere, okay, forces you, if you love to grow, if you love growth, then you would have to keep an eye out for adopting these, regulations and adopting and making sure that, that you are remaining competitive and you're remaining safe and secure in any part of the world. Okay. So most of the websites and apps today, give you those choices and options which are actually, outlined in GDPR, even though the source country of those apps may not be following a GDPR like yourself. Now, coming to the Indian context, now India is an IT powerhouse. We are serving the entire world, and whether even if India is a little late in catching up to those regulations, I think our regulations are going to be more or less in line with GDPR, maybe a little stricter. But it's time for for organizations to catch up if you want to be a global business. That is right. Now coming to uh, now again the other thing there I want to add, Krishna, is that uh, today is also the era of these consumable, reusable solutions, especially from the cloud. So you don't really use a hand-built, CRM. You're using any of those standard CRMs mostly, and those CRMs, since they have to serve customers across the world, come with their own, I would say, best practices and collations of how to handle customer data. So you better, not tweak too much with how they with how they do it, and just like simply adopt those best practices. So using good standard systems gives you that benefit of, bringing in some of the best practices, some of the security practices, and therefore, that allows you to catch up, right? So now I have another question. So Krishna, I hope that answers your question. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to put it out there. Um, I'm not really a privacy expert, so as I said, it's either you get a direct answer or you get an approach or you get a thought process. So this is more like a thought process that I've given you. So Dinesh question is, as per your experience, how Indian companies' digitization adoption rates is different from Western world or developed countries, and why? Okay. Very good question, Dinesh. So I'll restrict my answer um, to brick and mortar industries. Okay, so the world is today divided between the born in the cloud, the born digital companies who may be in a brick and mortar business, but they start they are like startups. Okay, and we have the brick and mortar companies uh, who are trying to digitally transform themselves. Now, here, in my experience, I've worked in both Indian and American companies, um, and I would say our adoption rate or our own, transformation has been slower than usual. Than what you find elsewhere. And I think the reason is the cost of labor. Okay. So in the Western world, it's much easier to make a case for any automation or digitization, because if you are able to save, let us say, a couple of hours from someone's role, or if you are able to, let's say, if you're able to give a good self-service option to a consumer, or if you're able to create a consumer experience which is far more efficient, okay, and is able to get you done things like this, you have to look at everything in terms of the amount of time that an employee spends on a process, or a consumer spends on a process, right? Now, as an enterprise, you put a value to this time, and this value to the time is basically like, in absence of anything more nuanced, I will just take a crude thing called labor rate. Okay? Now, if you look at the labor rate, in the Western world and in India, or in the, let's say, developing world, you will find that we have more people, um, which can be thrown at a task, um, and therefore, like, it's harder to build a business case for using technology, rather than putting some more people on that task. Okay. Now, there are other aspects of digitization, which is like, for example, generating useful data, having one single version of data, and then the tertiary benefits, like the analytics, the insights, your ability to mine data and all that. Those things sort of become somewhere um hazy, because what immediately makes people invest in technology is like, what is the immediate benefit I will get, right? And I think that's where the cost of labor basically makes it harder for you to justify any kind of automation that you're doing in India. Right? So I know that is not the best of the answers, but that's like my version of it, and that's where Um, but this is changing, of course. So, just in terms of trends, I think two changes. One is like, the qualified manpower is harder to get, and the second is that people are seeing more and more. They are opening their eyes to the benefits of analytics, to the benefits of better controls using technology and stuff like that. And of course, like, as a country itself, like, we are the question I answered earlier about the government pushing for digitization. Oh, this is changing. This is really changing rapidly. Yes. So here I have a comment from Balaji. Then Balaji says, "Good morning, Jagdish. So Balaji, this is afternoon in India. So that means you're from US. So you let us know your location with that greeting." For manufacturing, good morning, Balaji. For manufacturing organizations, as we drive IT/OT strategies, OE, SCADA, etc., closer to shop floor, what do you think of where corporates versus manufacturing IT should play? How have you seen collaboration, competition, and ideas of winning together? Thoughts on the role of enterprise architecture functions as we expand beyond traditional IT? What shop floor platforms to use? Hey Balaji, I think it may be a good idea for you to come online. So Vinay, if you can, Vinay or Sumit, if you guys can send, our StreamYard uh, code to Balaji in a private message. So Balaji, if you're okay, I'll get you in the studio and let's have a bit of a dialogue on this question, rather than me trying to show myself as an authority on this. Yes, we did some work on MES, but let's park it for that. Let me take some other questions. And Balaji, if you're not comfortable coming live, if you're still in your pajamas, okay, do send me a comment on LinkedIn so that I don't wait for you and I'll start answering that question. Okay. Okay. So let me take another question from my backlog. Okay. So this question comes from Rakesh Khetan. I'm not sure, Rakesh, whether you're on the chat or not. He says, can you share challenges in managing partners to deliver and keep updated on technology with the speed of technology being updated? So this is a great question. We find that people have our partners, when you go to their website or when you hear them out, there's a huge amount of marketing pitch which says that we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. But when you come to your own enterprise where your partner is serving you, you don't find those things, coming out really in a spectacular fashion to you. So I think that leads to this kind of a question that how can your partner keep you updated with technology? So, and what is the challenge around that? So Rakesh, we have to understand uh, the way these organizations work and the architecture, and once you understand that, that is what allows you to basically work around this. Okay, so um, how does an IT services organization work? So they have the delivery functions, where you have these technology guys, who are running your operations. And then you have, these, what do you call, the research and development, the research functions or the technology functions, or, the COEs who are trying to create new solutions. These are like sitting somewhere else. These are not sitting in your operations or somewhere on top of your operations. Okay. So now what is their focus? They are always focused on incremental business, on additional business, or on new business. Okay, and they are creating those solutions for that, or those POCs for that incremental business. Again, given the what we just spoke about, the labor arbitrage, labor cost arbitrage, because of which the focus will be towards the west. And you will find that whatever being talked about outside is not being talked about to you. So the bridge here will always be through the account manager. So I have always looked at account manager as not someone who is like managing or keeping live and kicking my operations, coming from the partner, but someone who I have to challenge, to get me the best of that partner. Okay, so whatever you hear about, your partner doing out there, or like a technology area that you think is applicable to your business, I think you should have regular meetings with your account manager. You have to put your account manager on a bit of a pedestal in terms of, because he's the one who gets you the value, he or she is the one who gets you the value. So you have to challenge them, you have to partner with them in getting the sort of knowledge into your ecosystem, getting them to organize some of these sessions, for you as well as your business people, in terms of what new technology can do for you, and set up some sort of a system of governance, including some KPIs. Like for example, one of the KPIs that you can run is, hey, how many improvement ideas have, or how many improvement ideas or new technology ideas have come from you, or how many POCs have we done, in terms of improving our operations. So think of it, in a management sense. Okay, so if it was, I mean, how would you be, governing the relationship in a way where you're not only talking of SLAs and and the operational improvements, but you're also putting the new technologies or innovations or new solutions, as an integral part of your day-to-day discussions with the partner. I think that requires a bit of maturity to take up the level of the discussions on a day-to-day basis, but I think you have to do that if you want to get the best out of your partners, right? Let me know, Rakesh, if you are there, or even if you hear a recording later on, let me know if this helps. Hey, Balaji, I see your comment which says, sure, I can come live on audio. I would love to have you on video, actually, if you can. All you need is a comb, actually. Okay. Yeah. So I have Sandeep here. He says, Dinesh Singh, being and working in Europe manufacturing industry from last 15 years, I fully endorse your view Jagdish shared on your question. I think Sandeep, you are talking about the cost arbitrage and the respect for automation, the ROI for automation, and all of that, right? Yeah. Thanks, Sandeep. I've been to Germany. I love the country. The only thing I missed was I visited at a time where it was like raining on a daily basis, very cloudy, raining on a daily basis. And even though the sun was out till 10 p.m., I couldn't play golf there. I would love to play golf in Germany. Martin Kaymer is one of the players I always love watching on golf. Like, you know, very, very balanced and very calm and cool guy. One of my role models there. Right? So Balaji, you have the StreamYard link in your message inbox. Whenever you join, I'll bring you in. Okay. Okay. So let me hunt for some other questions here. I have another. So I picked up a couple of questions from my backlog. Now let me pick up something from the live. Okay. So this is Pramod. Pramod Sonmale. Pramod says the best way to address quality of services and domain experts, we are trying to address the unified services collaboration with the help of industries, experience experts. The best way to address. Pramod, I didn't get much of it so that I can comment on it. I kind of understand what you're trying to do, what you're trying to say, but which is like you're trying to bring in the domain experts and technology experts together with some sort of unified collaboration. And but yeah, what are you trying to do? So maybe like you can be a little more explicit. Okay, so Pramod, I'll wait for some additional explanations from you while I'm also waiting for Balaji here. But meanwhile, let us move to another question from Prashant. Okay, how work culture affects decision making at the senior leadership level? What attributes affect the decision? How work culture affects decision making? That's a great question. Great question. Yeah. So, see, work culture is a huge subject in itself. But let us cover a little bit of I think where I think you are coming from. Sorry, I'll pick up this question. So Balaji, this should be in your LinkedIn inbox if I'm correct. Okay, so just check your LinkedIn messages. That's where you should be seeing the link. Okay, let me come back to Prashant's question: how work culture affects decision making. See, to get the best of decisions, okay, what you really need is for people to feel absolutely free about making decisions. Now, you can only have two types of decision. You can have decisions which are very conservative in nature, very risk averse in nature, and you can have decisions which are which are really pushing the envelope, right? So in that context, the work culture matters quite a lot. If you have a work culture, where let's say mistakes are accepted, okay, where um, um, where you don't get beaten up for a bad decision, or like a decision not going right. I think you will see that you will have you will have people take, you will see more vibrancy, you will see people taking more risks, okay, and you will see people speaking their mind. Now, coming to culture itself, again, all of you hearing me here are, leading teams in some or the other sense. So I want to leave you with a, with an actionable. In my view, the work culture in your department is a function of your behaviors. Okay, um, if if you are tolerant of failures, if you're tolerant of mistakes, you will see that your team is like taking faster decisions. They are not afraid, and they are not afraid to make mistakes. If you're tolerant of criticism, if you're tolerant of differences of opinion, right, you will find that there's a much more frank and honest dialogues happening in your department or in your company, um, and the level of defensiveness in people is much lesser, right? If you are punctual, your team will be punctual, right? If you are passionate about your customer, your team will be passionate about your customers, right? So your behavior will have a direct impact on your team's culture. Okay. um, so 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 whatever decisions you want your teams to take, okay, let's personalize it a little bit. Let's cut the gyan out and let's make it actionable. Whatever you want your team to do, whatever type of decisions you want your teams to take, work backwards and see that, like, work out how you will need to be responding to them, how you need to take those decisions yourself, and what are those things that are stopping them from doing what how you expect them to do it, and somewhere you will find that the answers are within you. Okay. So I hope that that helps. You asked another question, Prashant, which was about how at senior leadership level what attributes affect decision making. I would say a lot. The more you go at a senior level, the more number of factors you have to take into account. And as you keep going higher and higher, I think the number of external factors in your decision making becomes bigger and bigger. Okay, that means your reputational factors, your the brand perception, the changes to your brand perception. Uh, you know, let's say even news channels. Uh, you know. Talking about anything that you have done. So I'll leave you with an example, and that will sort of help you understand what I'm saying. So here we were long back. We had a new product, which was like a buzz, 1 lakh rupees car, and we were preparing ourselves for an onslaught of, like, customer demand. Okay, and then obviously we would have limited capacity, so we would have to do some sort of a lottery mechanism. Okay, now the kind of visibility that the product had, we did actually everything. We had this entire system in place, and around that time there was a DDA flat allotment, news story which many channels were running. That they were basically putting all kind of suspicions out there in terms of how those DDA flat allocations were happening. And I said, oh my God, if these kind of aspersions are cast on, how we have allotted, how we are allotting cars, that would be really disastrous. So I actually suggested to my business guys, I said, listen, we should have one of the audit firms actually run through our entire process of how we are, doing the random selection of customers. We should also do an internal check in terms of a correlation between, let's say, for example, we take this data, sample data. Let's say we run a lottery on 200,000 customer records, and we do all kinds of statistical analysis of the data. Which city, how much, which age group, how much, and all that. And once we have done the random sampling, we again take that smaller sample and we see, what kind of correlation coefficient we are getting. Ours was internally was pretty good, but then I think we brought in one of the big fours to audit the entire process. They helped ruggedize the process, and that's how the entire lottery process was done. Now, if you're just doing it as a department or thinking of it as a technology problem, you might be putting the company itself to risk. So as you go higher, you will have to start looking at more and more external factors and more external coefficients to be addressed. Okay, so here I have with me Balaji. Let me bring him on. Hey Balaji, how are you?
Good morning, good afternoon. How are you, Jagdish?
Hey Balaji, good to see you after quite some time.
I know it has been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah, so just for the audience sake, how I and Balaji know each other. When I was the CIO at Tata Motors, Balaji was the CIO at Tata Technologies, who was our biggest IT services partner, and of course Tata Motors held a stake in them. Yeah, Balaji. So let's do a bit of a discussion around IT OT strategies, OE, SCADA, and also it's, I think, so much easier to hear it from you rather than reading that long question.
Sure. I will say I'll start by saying, Jagdish, I think, that time that I spent back in Tata Technologies particularly helped me through my career, because I think as you grow, it's incredibly important to be on both sides of the table and to understand what it means to be a partner and to understand what it means to be a customer is a perspective that I think is a privilege through your career. The question specifically is for manufacturing organizations. Right now, I work in the medical device industry. I'm a senior director at a company called Medtronic. It's one of the large medical device companies. And ultimately, most of these guys have large manufacturing plants. And what I've seen is no matter which company you go to, we're traditionally good in what I call the IT space, ERP, PLM, all the systems that we're strong in. But the technology is shifting much more towards the shop floor, right? So how do you connect the machines? How do you digitize it? And then in parallel, we have engineering technologies come in through the manufacturing organization, and really looking for what you've seen in other companies. I think unfortunately, there's lesser cases where we have collaboration, but more cases where there's more, what do you call it, competition. And I don't know if it's just the industry that's very young and evolving, or it's just the fact of why have I seen it in the same case in so many companies. And so looking to get your thoughts there.
Oh, no. I've seen it. I've seen it in companies I've worked in. So ask me about it. You're absolutely right, Balaji. There's I would say it's more like protecting your turf. There's not so much, I won't call it competition, but it's protecting your turf. So the shop floor people have always been running the local IT with a complete control. I don't think it is in their nature or it is in their I would say experience to be controlled by any corporate policies. So we know that the hardcore operations functions are very, very autonomous, right? There's not too much of corporate interference which is there, whether it's shop floor or whether it is materials and supply chain or whether it is sales and distribution. There's far more autonomy that they enjoy, just because they are, nobody dares touch those value creation activities, right? But when you look at IT as a function, we tend to bring in a certain sort of guardrails and certain, I would say, policies and all of that, just because it impacts the organization. One hole somewhere in your entire enterprise can actually bring down the enterprise, right? And I think that's where the clash is. The clash is in the fundamental nature of how IT thinks about putting controls and uh, putting controls and guardrails versus operations functions loving their autonomy and not entertaining anyone from outside. So how I sort of worked on this was to actually work with my manufacturing leaders. We have to go higher up. We can't be competing or having that what do you call conflict in the DNA itself. At my operations level, between my network engineers versus their the machine technologists, right? So we had to first diagnose this problem at a very senior level. So at a plant head level, when we when I discussed with them, I first made them aware of this challenge. That why, what are the differences between the way our guys think, right? Then we also looked at you also have to then define the pain or the challenge. I think the biggest challenge is there, there's so much of USPs which were into play at that time. It was really putting it was putting them to risk, and they had seen those kind of impacts. The controller machines were pretty old, and they saw those as there. So I think at a senior level, people are always looking at it from the risk point of view. Okay, so while they may be tolerating what the people at the shop floor are doing, they are very well aware of the risks and challenges. So I think the agenda needs to be made there. That awareness and alignment of where we are coming from needs to be created there. And then I think we need to push into those sort of self-governing working groups, like your network guys, my network guys working together, your guys working with my guys, and then solving the problem. So I think when they are trying to solve a problem, if I partner with them, it becomes much easier for me to get a traction onto with them, right? Or when I'm trying to solve a problem, let's say trying to de-risk something, and I ask for their help. So I think that's the approach we should be taking. Number one, starting from the top. Number two, becoming aware of the differences in our thinking. And the number three is getting into this joint teaming and problem solving mode, where everything eventually, whatever we want to do, can be broken down into a series of problems to solve. And both the guys on their side, on plant floor side and IT side, are actually engineers, so they love solving problems. So you have to throw it to them as problems, and they will basically partner together. But I think looking at it from a competition point of view may not, will probably kill the whole thing right at the beginning itself. Does it make sense, Balaji?
No, absolutely does. I think to add to the challenge, I think in the traditional IT space, we seem to have very strong methods and approaches, right? We have enterprise architecture, there's Gartner, there's lots of people that the traditional IT people go to the library and say, here's the standards. When it comes to the OT space, a lot of the technology is still evolving, right? So you usually get the CIO to say, go back and tell me the Gartner Foursquare. And I think that's part of the challenge also, that as much as you talked about the problems in manufacturing, IT is also not truly evolved to understand that space. So we'll definitely just, but agree with the point that there's always alignment at the top. It's then cascading it down to the middle and the lower layers. I think that's a very true comment.
Absolutely, Balaji. Hey, thanks for joining us, Balaji.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Yeah. Okay, so guys, we are at the last 2 minutes of our chat. Let me see if we have any other questions. So let me bring in some comments in the meanwhile. So Sandeep Batra says, good to know, Jagdish. Looking forward to meeting you soon next time in Germany. I pray for a good weather. And Sandeep, I hope you play golf. And if you don't, please learn. I would really love to play around with you. I know you've been pretty regular on ClarITea Chat. And I would love to actually play golf with you and maybe give you a tip or two. Okay. Okay, so then we have another question coming from Anil Bahl. Anil is asking, what about containing supply chain disruption with respect to business continuity? Oh, we are learning it, Anil. As if the pandemic wasn't enough, we have the Ukraine situation, again, sending everyone back to the drawing boards in terms of how to, secure your supply chains. And there's more to come. In fact, I've been, I've discussed this a couple of times one was in the CFO, in a private panel that I did, so it isn't on the social media. The other time was again a private one, where I was addressing supply chain function of a large multinational. And my take was that this is a classic problem on two sides. One is traditionally people have been doing this supplier consolidation. So you are trying to reduce the number of suppliers you deal directly with, and therefore you have a limited number of tier one suppliers, and then you have the next tier two suppliers and the tier three suppliers. Okay, and very conveniently people have left the tier two and tier three management to the tier one itself. Okay, and what you see, the problems that are happening today is that lack of knowledge or the lack of data that you have about your tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers. Okay, so I think it's time to get back into the vertical integration, but not vertical integration from an operations point of view, that you start buying out all your suppliers right down to NS level, but vertical integration in terms of data. Okay, so you need to vertically integrate your data. That means you keep data about your tier one, you keep data about your tier two, you keep data about your tier three, and then you start putting all the other stuff in place. Like, for example, which locations they are in, which countries they are in, what kind of lead times they have. So I'm keeping a record of my lead times with my tier one. Do I have a sense of what are my tier two lead times with tier one, or tier three lead times with tier two? I think you have to manage the entire information chain if you want to manage the supply chain, right? I hope that helps. Well, just to add to that, like unless you have all of that, you cannot do any kind of supply chain analytics. You cannot do any kind of what if analysis of, like building scenarios on, if this happens, then how will I get disrupted? Which plants I should ramp up, which plants I should ramp down, and all that. You can't do that unless you vertically integrate your information. Okay. So let me go to the last leg, and again bringing in some comments. So yeah, thanks, Sandeep. Um, Madhavan Aganathan asks, hello sir, how to make effective backward project plan in your experience? So Madhavan, I think if you can rephrase your question in terms of maybe elaborate it a little bit more. I'll try to take it into my backlog for the next AMA. We are out of time right now, so I can't really ask you for an explanation and explain it now. So let's take it to the next discussion. But do put a detailed one, like especially like what is the challenge that you are facing, or what is the challenge that you faced. You can give a little bit of the business context also. That would help. Okay, so Pramod had initially asked a question which I had asked to clarify. So he has sent a clarification saying, I'm trying to convey how we leverage people experts by collaborating domain specialist individuals or partners together by delivering from unified services platform framework. Since today's biggest challenge, keeping pace with fast evolving technology. Pramod, I think I got you like almost there, that you're trying to leverage the domain specialists and partners, along with the people experts to deliver from a unified services platform. I would love to hear a little bit more about it. So, in terms of what you're trying to do there, but yeah, I think it's the right thing to do. Even in technology, I think the best case studies you will find where technology people came together with the domain specialists, and there was a good jugalbandi of, like, technology capabilities or technology solutions, being married with the functional problems, and not just functional problems, but with the expertise to solve those functional problems, right? So I can very well imagine this as uh, so think about like a engine mechanic, okay? And I'm a tools manufacturer, and this engine mechanic is trying to solve a problem with the engine and says, hey, I need this tool. And I'm like next to him and giving him those tools, whatever he wants, and say, hey, you know what? If I had that tool, I could solve this problem better. And I say, hey, wait a minute, cut. And, I give him another tool to solve that problem. So think about that kind of jugalbandi, that, one is having all the tools and the second is having all the knowledge of how an engine works and how they work together. I think that's where the magic is. Okay. So thanks everyone. I think, wow, I mean, many more comments. I wish I could take more comments. We are already 5 minutes behind schedule. But yeah, as always, we'll take it to the backlog and we'll try to answer them faster and faster in the next AMA sessions. So guys, like, still learning, 38 episodes down, still learning how to accommodate, your expectations, your questions into the chat, into the chats, how to, sort of make sure that, like, we are able to answer more and more questions, even if it is within the not the same session, maybe in the session afterwards. And I must thank my team, which is doing that kind of job of, trying to be accountable to each of our audience in terms of whatever you guys are asking, at least give some response out there, or keep it in the backlog. Okay. So thank you, everyone. Next week, I will be back with another guest, another CIO. And I hope to see you again in 39th episode of ClarITea Chat next week. But thank you for your encouragement, engagement. And I must also acknowledge, all of you people who are lazy enough to, attend the chat live, but, who are smart enough to attend the chat during the next, about 24, 36 hours. Because what I see is that while we have about 40 to 50 guests, I mean, audience in the live, by the end of the week, which is by the end of Sunday, this goes into about something like 500 views. So I must acknowledge and thank all of you out there who are watching the recording in the next 24 or 36 hours. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your comments and your engagement. So I'll see you guys all next week. Till then, bye-bye.